I had a bad feeling when I watched the trailer to this movie because the trailer wasn't funny. And I walked away from it being like, well, damn, it won't really no moments in there that really would intrigue me to watch this movie aside from the fact that I saw Coming to America 1. When he was like, oh, Simi, we're going back to America. And he was like, oh, hell no, Your Majesty. Oh, hell no. I was like, oh, hell no indeed, Simi. Oh, hell no indeed, nigga. Because I don't know about these jokes, my chief.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Cinecism. I'm Eric.
It's your boy Dante, man, and today we're going to be doing a review on Coming to America 2.
Coming to America 2 reunites the legendary cast of the original Coming to America from the 80s. The movie focuses on the king is now, of course, way more elderly than he was in the previous movie. And he's basically on his deathbed. He's already accepted the fact that he's going to die. Prince Hakeem is placed in the leadership role of king of Zamunda now. Shortly after he becomes the king, he discovers that he has a firstborn son now, in addition to his already teenage and, adult daughters. He discovers that he has a male heir to his throne. The movie basically focuses on him embarking on a mission back to the United States with his best friend Simi to find this prince heir to the throne.
The thing about Coming to America 2 is that it would give you the impression that the movie was going to take place mostly in America like this movie did, but the whole retrieval of his son aspect is pretty quick. He get him pretty quick, and then the majority of the movie this time takes place in Zamunda. I thought that was a nice little interesting twist.
It was definitely a nice change of pace.
Yeah. So in this movie, you got Lavelle, who's Hakeem's son, and basically, he's a fish out of water in Zamunda now. The whole plot of how he even became a person is wild. And we'll talk more about that.
Could have did better than that.
Yeah. And so he's in Zamunda. Their countries are seemingly at war with Wesley Snipes' country. He needs a male heir to his throne because he has daughters, but his daughters can't be the heir to the throne due to Zamundan rules. And he's pretty much just trying to teach this boy about the culture. They never really quite talked about the abandonment aspect. I thought was interesting. They just pretty much got right into the shit.
It was like, oh shit.
About him being the son.
Let's go.
Exactly. Know where you been, daddy. None of that. Hakeem is in here a lot. I guess he's not really quite the man that he was. He was kind of more idealistic in the first movie. He's very much so become his father now.
He's grown into a more traditional ruler with time. He seems wiser, but he seems to have taken on some of his father's traits as far as as a leader.
Right. And he also has 3 daughters. The eldest one really was next in line and should have been the one that probably would take over the kingdom, but because of their wonky ass rules, she can't do that. So, she's feeling a way about her newfound brother being there and all of that. They never really quite did a lot of things, but they definitely never established a real relationship between him and everything happened so quickly. It was like no relationships. As if I had figured out that I had a long lost brother, you'd think it would be some type of interaction or something.
Yeah.
It really was no building of that relationship between him and Hakeem or him and his sisters, really.
I've never experienced this, but I would imagine it would be pretty awkward, meeting somebody, a sibling for the first time as an adult. So I don't know what you would really have to say to that person. They tried to do something, I guess, with it, but, I see what you're saying, though.
Also, when Lavelle comes, he brings his whole family from New York, and they all pretty much ratchet. So you got that aspect. You got the ratchet Americans in this regal-ass Zamundan culture. So that sets it up for comedy.
What else plot-wise do you want to talk about before we get into the shits?
Dog, we probably gave the plot more credit than it actually had. I'm going to be really honest with you.
Yeah.
That's about it in the plot department.
Let's get to the shits then.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Let's unpack
to unravel in this bitch.
I felt like this movie also knew that it wasn't funny. It's like they didn't want to stay on the comedy for too long. They would quickly abandon it. I think this movie, it should have probably been made between 2000 and 2010. It just felt very dated.
Yeah, this movie should have came out 20 years ago.
Yes.
For sure.
It felt felt very dated, and I know that they originally were supposed to release the movie a lot earlier, and it felt like they never revised the script. He had that line in there where he was like, oh yes, I'm on fleek, and everything's on fleek. It seemed like that joke was probably the original joke. They just never went and updated it when the new script came out, and so they had to throw that line in there where the girl was like, yeah, nobody says that anymore, Dad. Bro, these are terms that you haven't heard in years. It seemed like whoever wrote this movie was a little bit out of touch. And then in the barbershop scene, this is probably usually the most edgiest part of the movie is the people in the barbershop. Those characters don't really work today. That's the truth of the matter.
And the barbershop dude should be dead, bro. They was old in the 80s.
Yes, they're dead now. All of them. Especially that Jewish guy. He's long dead. In this movie, it's like they were trying to make jokes based off controversy. It felt like somebody went on Twitter and looked up trending topics and just was bringing up them topics. Just bringing up something controversial doesn't make it funny or controversial. You have to actually commit to a joke. The nigga was like, yeah, you know, my granddaughter and now my grandson, you know, motherfuckers be trans. Niggas be trans out here. Did you know? Like, yeah, nigga, I know people be trans. Like, what the fuck is the joke? That's not a joke. Then they were like, oh yeah, Trump used to have Obama, now this boy crazy. Okay, what the fuck is the joke? Like, what's the punchline? Then they tried to make a colorism joke, but they never committed to that neither. I like red bones. Well, I like dark skinned women. Well, let's agree to disagree. Make a joke, nigga.
Like Sherman.
Like, that's what it's
Miss Purdy.
Right. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that this movie is rated PG-13. Not saying you can't make a good PG-13 comedy, because you can, but with a movie that was previously R, these were previously R characters, going to PG-13, it makes a big difference, I think. Now they don't have that same range to really take it there that they did in the first movie. They felt very constrained in this movie to me, like they was trying to stay family friendly.
You can't make sequels to classic R-rated movies as PG-13.
No.
Especially after taking so long to make the sequel to begin with.
I agree.
Like, you have to stay true to the source material.
You need all the help you can get.
Yeah.
Because the deck is stacked against you in this particular instance. Then they tried to make that joke was like, yeah, you know, when they make sequels, you don't even have to make sequels. There's no point when the originals are classic. I'm like, nigga, just because you meta don't make this movie better, bro. Everything you say still applies to this very movie. I don't give a fuck if you said it or not. Right. I felt like this movie, the guy that they had, he wasn't unfunny in any way, but it felt like he didn't have a lot to do.
I did not like him as a lead.
Nah.
I'm just gonna say it.
And then once again, he felt dated to me too. Even the way he was dressing, I was like, fam, who the fuck wearing shit like this today? Like, you know, I don't know who would be dressing like that in 2020. It wasn't him. I just think that he didn't have a lot of good lines in the movie. I can't think of nothing specifically that he said that stood out to me.
And I'm trying to think of a young actor that I could see in his place, like a young funny actor.
I mean, you could have put Jay Farrell in here. Jay Farrell pretty funny.
That actually, that makes sense for multiple reasons.
And then he could do a lot of characters too. He could have been other people. He did great.
That would have been perfect, actually.
Yeah. I just didn't understand some of the choices that they made. So you had Lunel cast in this movie, who was extremely funny, but you didn't give her any lines. She didn't have any lines to say in this movie whatsoever. And I personally think that could be for a few reasons. The main one that comes to mind is that one, Lunel is a very R-rated comedy person. And I feel like she had jokes in here, but they edited them out because it didn't match the tone of this PG-13 shit they was trying to go for. And then you had Leslie Jones, who I actually don't have anything against. It's like, fam, if you gonna get somebody to play Tiffany Haddish, just get Tiffany Haddish. You know what I'm saying? Why would you just get somebody to act like Tiffany Haddish acts in movies? Just get Tiffany. You might as well. She's better at it. They had a lot of funny people in this movie that weren't funny. Tracy Morgan, he wasn't funny. Just, yo, I'm from Brooklyn, yo. That was like all he said in the whole movie. Arsenio wasn't funny. It's like niggas wasn't that voice. I never seen so many funny people in one place just not be funny. You know what I'm saying?
Wesley Snipes
was funny.
Who was not even in
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Wesley Snipes was funny.
He had some funny lines.
Yeah, he did.
He was like, whose auntie is this?
Yeah. You know, I also say this in comparison to the original. This movie to me felt very stagnant, not only in the jokes, but also in the way that they filmed it. The first movie probably only got maybe 4 to 5 actual set pieces in the movies. It's their apartment, it's McDowell's, there's a few houses, but it's limited, but they made it feel like a world because of the way they shot it. It'll be McDowell's, but it'll be on the side of it. Then it'll be in the back. Then it'll be in the kitchen area. Then it'll be in the seating area. So it felt like it had dimensions.
Yeah, they would be in the city too at some point.
That's what I'm saying. For a kingdom, this shit felt very limited to the throne room. Not only did they shoot a lot of stuff in the throne room, but they shot it the same way of niggas walking in the throne room. It just started to feel real repetitive. Like, just because Wesley bopping in that bitch like this don't necessarily make it a different shot. You still got niggas coming in the throne room. In comparison to the scale that they set in the first movie, this felt like a step back.
Which is surprising because I know the budget on that movie is considerably lower than what this movie had.
I'm saying.
Especially with inflation and everything.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what else, man? This movie felt really long to me for some reason. It's always a bad sign when I can feel the length of a movie. I don't like to feel like I'm waiting for a movie to be over. And that's how I felt that parts of this movie, unfortunately.
But that's linked to your enjoyment. Like, when you enjoying a long movie, you won't even notice the time. The time passed quick as hell. When it's a movie that you feeling uninterested in and you're not invested in, you start to really feel that time creeping up. You're like, God damn, nigga, it's an hour 30 already. Oh. It became very clear to me early on in this movie that this movie wasn't going to really be funny. I was just kind of hoping that it would be a good movie. And I feel like if they would have just followed the storyline, they didn't even need the son aspect, especially considering how they even tried to make that make sense. If they would have just focused on his daughters, you already had kids here. You had a good story with the whole thing of her not really eligible to be queen. Just focus on them. Like, let the story be about her maybe finding love or something. And they felt like more interesting characters to me. Like, I wanted to know more about them than the nigga they put in front of us. He just wasn't very interesting. He seemed very one note and limited. I was like, damn, what's up with them? They could fight and shit. Like, what they be
make
doing?
Him like idealistic, but it felt forced to me.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you want to talk about the whole shit about how he even became his son, how they tried to make it make sense with the beginning of the movie.
You can.
Nigga, listen. That shit is ridiculous no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
I was like, bruh, this is the story they went with? That night that they went to the club and met all them crazy women, Simi met some girls at a bar. They went back to their apartment. She had sex with Prince Hakeem while he was drugged, and he had no recollection of this. This is insane to me. Because apparently he was high off weed. He took one hit of a blunt and couldn't have no recollection of what happened for 30 plus years.
It was a very weird plot point to me.
Very.
Even when looking at it, I was trying to make sense of it. And it's like,
then they CGI looked fucking weird. They tried to de-age these niggas. They looked...
Some shots definitely look better than
some
others.
Look better
but
than
sometimes
others.
It was definitely very glaring. Because their faces would be super smooth.
Yeah, right. It won't smooth in the original movie
that's
like
not
this.
How faces work.
No.
Man. I need to see some imperfections.
You need
Otherwise,
some blemishes, bro.
You're going to have that uncanny valley looking type.
What I honestly thought the plot was, I thought maybe he had sex with one of his bathers and got her pregnant. And then the dad found out about it, but he never knew. God. And then they sent them to America.
That would have been a way better.
That's what I was saying, man. And then it would have been better also from a story standpoint, him having this relationship previously with this woman, because they kept putting Fancy from Jamie Foxx in the commercials. She was like one of his servants in the original movie. I thought maybe he got her pregnant. She was the mother of his child and shit.
Like, she was in that.
Yeah, she ain't have no lines in this movie. I don't even know why she was even fucking in here. But
what were the key or standout moments for you personally that you can remember from the movie? Like best parts or highlights of the movie? You got any of those?
I would say that I did appreciate the throwback calls to the original. It felt very shoehorned in at some parts.
Some of them I appreciate. Yeah. Some of them was a little cringy.
I agree. Overall, the best part of the movie was probably just seeing the cast. The nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
Of seeing everybody together, seeing how much they grown. It was just good to see. Because even with the nostalgia factor, if I'm going to be completely honest and transparent, I didn't really feel anything. It was visually pleasing to see, but I never really got a real feeling of seeing them all together together because I felt like the movie never really quite bonded that, like really quite made the nostalgia stand out.
What did you think of Hakeem and because we didn't even really talk about them, but Hakeem and Lisa's dynamic?
They had no kind of chemistry in this movie.
They didn't feel married to you?
I mean, they just didn't have a lot of interaction. I really wanted to get to know his new family. And in that, I also say you didn't get to know his daughters either. And they seemed really cool. They all could fight, seemingly had quirky personalities and were very different. I would have liked to have got to know his new life in Zamunda a little bit better, especially Lisa, because Lisa was an established relationship. I felt like he should have had a little bit more interaction with her. And I could honestly say the same thing about Simi too. And that's kind of what I was saying about the nostalgia. They just kind of put them in the same room and thought that would be nostalgic. But they didn't communicate a lot. In my opinion, there won't really no memorable moments between them that I could think of.
They tried to play a lot on the nostalgia.
Yes.
Even with like down to the retelling of some of the jokes from the first movie, which I thought it was not necessary.
No. Yes.
That's what I wanted to see most was the cast, but I definitely would have appreciated more progression of the characters in the movie than what we got to see.
It felt like it regressed.
I know Lisa's dad was in there. He was just, you know.
He wasn't even his real self. When he gave him that advice, I was like, nigga, he wouldn't say that. Like, what is up with all this McDowell's rhetoric? He kept going back to, because it's kind of like the McGriddle. And then like, nigga, I'm asking you about my marriage with your daughter and what I should do about my son. What the fuck is you talking about a sandwich for? Like, what does that mean? He just seemed like a buffoon, bro. Like, honestly, he's actually a very good dramatic actor.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like that could have been a very good dramatic moment, but they didn't really capitalize on it. I guess the last thing I'll say is, man, and this movie put me onto some game. Apparently, you can die on cue. Like, you can die when you want to die. And I don't mean suicide. I mean, you can literally command your body, your heart to stop when it's dramatically convenient for your storyline, apparently. Right. James Earl Jones had the weirdest funeral I've ever fucking seen. Nigga sitting up in the casket looking like an old Count Chocula, and Salt and Pepper come out, which in vogue. Then they had Gladys Knight, which is never dated for whatever reason. That was fine. I was cool with Gladys. I said, all right, let Gladys come out here. Yeah, sing Midnight Train to Zamunda, and then the nigga that just died.
Funny, I ain't gonna lie.
He just died.
The lyrics would have me tripping.
Oh my God.
You put together this whole ceremony, huh? You told them how you wanted the people to come out. You told them you picked out your casket. Told them how you wanted to lay up in that bitch when they erected it. It's crazy. I wish I could just die on command.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, and I'm tired of this shit. I'm out. Coming to America 2, it was definitely nowhere near as memorable as the original. Wasn't expecting that personally. I don't know if anybody was at this point with it being so long between movies. It was some genuinely funny moments in the movie, but they were kind of few and far between for me. Most of it was cheap jokes and just play on people's nostalgia, in my very humble opinion. Yeah, I'm going to give Coming to America 2. It was a 5 out of 10 for me, dog. What'd you think?
You always going to have a hard time when you have such a classic movie and you have a follow-up to it. That's at any rate. But when you have a movie that's a classic and you try to make a sequel so many years later, you already kind of stacking the deck against you. It's definitely not as funny as the original. I would argue it's not that funny, period. I can't think of too many memorable moments from this movie, man. I'm probably not going to remember this movie. I'm certainly not going to watch it again. For me, I'm going to give it a 4. It was below average for me. Only thing keeping it even lower than a 4 for me is the fact that it has a nostalgia tie to the first movie.
When I compare it to the times that I genuinely found something funny, it's like in between of genuine laughter and no laughter at all. Yeah. It's like a half a laugh.
A halfter.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Thank y'all for tuning in to our review of Coming to America 2. I hope y'all enjoyed it. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And also let us know what you thought of this long-awaited sequel. If it lived up to the expectations or if it kind of was a dud for you.
Or did you have any key moments, anything that stood out to y'all? What were you expecting in terms of getting a sequel? We'd love to know that as well.
If there are any sequels to any classic movies that you would like to see, that you can think of that haven't been made yet.
That's a really good question. Appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Peace.